huge heat blast from the sky at about 25 degrees above the horizon incinerated these twin cities on the Jordanian side of the river.
What? In a stunning twist that has set the archaeological world ablaze, new evidence has emerged that could finally unravel the fiery mystery of Sodom and Gomorrah, two of the most infamous cities in the Bible. Long dismissed as mere legend, these cities are now at the center of a groundbreaking discovery that challenges everything we thought we knew about the catastrophic events described in the scriptures.
Welcome to the Holy Land and this biblical site of Sodom and Gomorrah.
The legend of Sodom and Gomorrah. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah, as recounted in the book of Genesis chapters 18 and 19, is one of the most well-known biblical accounts of divine judgment. These two ancient cities, believed to have been located near the southern part of the Dead Sea, are symbolic of extreme moral decay and God's retribution. While their exact locations remain debated, the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah resonates as a cautionary tale in both religious and cultural contexts. In the biblical narrative, Sodom and Gomorrah were notorious for their grievous sins, which went beyond sexual immorality to include a broader disregard for hospitality, empathy, and respect toward others. This absence of morality reached a point where, according to Genesis 18 verses 20 and 21, the outcry of their sins ascended to the heavens. 3 angels visited Abraham to inform him of God's decision to destroy the cities due to their overwhelming wickedness. In a moment of intercession, Abraham pleaded with God to spare the cities if even 10 righteous people could be found, showing God's willingness to extend mercy if justice allowed. However, when this condition was not met, the cities faced divine destruction. The tale is filled with contrasts: hospitality versus cruelty, mercy versus judgment, and righteousness versus corruption. When 2 angels visited Sodom, Lot, Abraham's nephew, extended hospitality, inviting them to stay at his home despite the city's hostile environment. However, the men of Sodom, representative of the city's moral decay, demanded that Lot hand over his visitors, intending to have sexual relations with them. This encounter highlights the extreme depravity of the people, underscoring the complete loss of societal values. God's judgment upon Sodom and Gomorrah is depicted through the rain of burning sulfur from the heavens, wiping out not only the cities, but also the entire surrounding plain. This destruction serves as a vivid reminder of the consequences of unchecked moral decay. Genesis 19 verses 24 and 25 states, "Then the Lord rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah. Thus he overthrew those cities and the entire plain, destroying all those living in the cities, and also the vegetation in the land." This act of judgment was swift and total, leaving no trace of the cities or their inhabitants. One of the most striking moments in the story occurs when Lot's wife, disobeying the angel's command, looks back toward the burning city. As a result, she is transformed into a pillar of salt. This transformation has been interpreted as a symbol of the dangers of lingering attachment to a sinful past, serving as a sober reminder of the consequences of disobedience and moral hesitation. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah has profoundly influenced religious and cultural narratives. It has been interpreted as a symbol of divine judgment against not only sexual immorality, but also broader societal sins, such as inhospitality and lack of compassion. Religious teachings often use this narrative to emphasize the importance of righteous living, repentance, and the consequences of moral decline. Furthermore, it serves as a cultural metaphor, warning societies of the dangers of collective ethical decay. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah is as gripping as it is strange. Many scholars and archaeologists debate whether Sodom and Gomorrah were real places or purely fictional. Some argue that the story might have been inspired by real events, such as natural disasters, that were later woven into a mythic framework to convey moral lessons. This perspective suggests that rather than documenting historical facts, The tale was designed to illustrate the consequences of moral failings. Others speculate that the story could be an allegory, reflecting broader themes of divine justice and human behavior, rather than a literal account of ancient cities. As such, the tale of Sodom and Gomorrah remains a powerful yet elusive part of the dialogue between myth and history, leaving us to ponder its true origins and meanings. Finding evidence of a city destroyed by fire would be a significant boost for believers in the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. The search for Sodom and Gomorrah. The search for Sodom and Gomorrah has long captivated archaeologists, historians, and biblical scholars alike. These infamous cities, said to be destroyed by divine wrath due to their wickedness, are central to the story of the patriarch Abraham and his nephew Lot in the book of Genesis. Biblical clues point to the cities being located near the Dead Sea, with geographic details offering hints as to their possible locations. Sodom first appears in the Bible in Genesis 10 verse 19, marking its boundaries on the edge of Canaan. But the city truly enters the narrative in Genesis 13, when Abraham and Lot, both wealthy men with large herds and families, find themselves in need of more space to accommodate their livestock. Traveling together through the region between Bethel and Ai, towns located in the mountainous region north of modern-day Jerusalem, their herdsmen begin to quarrel over pasture land. Faced with this growing tension, Abraham proposes a peaceful solution: separation. He offers Lot the choice of where to settle, stating, "If you take the left, then I will go to the right. Or if you go to the right, then I will go to the left." Lot, upon lifting his eyes, sees the fertile and well-watered plain of Jordan, which, the Bible says, was lush and prosperous, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt. This plain is located eastward, near the Jordan River Valley, and stretches as far as the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. The narrative makes it clear that Lot's choice of settlement was strategic. From his vantage point in the hills near Bethel, he looked down upon the Jordan River Valley, a region famed for its fertility. In ancient times, the valley was lush, nourished by the Jordan River, and numerous streams flowing from the surrounding mountains. This abundance of water and verdant land made it highly desirable for those raising livestock. Lot chose this region for its prosperity, settling in the cities of the plain and pitching his tent near Sodom. The traditional belief that Sodom and Gomorrah were located near or beneath the southern end of the Dead Sea has been a popular notion for centuries, fueled by early biblical maps and excavations. However, modern research has raised several compelling arguments against this theory, making the southern Dead Sea location problematic for these ancient cities of sin. These problems are based on both geographic details from the Bible and archaeological evidence, or the lack thereof. One of the major issues with the southern Dead Sea theory is that the settlements near this area, which were initially considered potential candidates for Sodom and Gomorrah, were abandoned long before the biblical time frame of the city's destruction. Excavations in the area uncovered settlements, but no evidence has been found to suggest these could have been the cities of the plain. The time gap between the abandonment of these sites and the biblical narrative casts serious doubt on whether this area could have been the home of the infamous cities. The Bible's description of Sodom adds to the difficulty. Genesis 13 verses 10 to 12 describe the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah as being in the well-watered plain of the Jordan, which is associated with fertile land and abundant water sources. However, the southern end of the Dead Sea does not fit this description. While the Jordan River flows into the northern end of the Dead Sea, no river enters or exits the southern end, and there are no significant springs or streams in that region. This arid and barren environment contrasts sharply with the lush and fertile area that Lot chose to settle in. Another significant problem arises from the geographical relationship between Sodom and Bethel and Ai, where Abraham and Lot are said to have parted ways in Genesis chapter 13. The Bible indicates that from their vantage point, they could see the plain of the Jordan, and Lot chose to travel east toward Sodom. However, The southern end of the Dead Sea is not visible from this area. Mountain ranges block the view of the southern region, and the only visible portion from where Abraham and Lot stood is the northern end of the Dead Sea. This strongly suggests that the cities of the plain were located north of the Dead Sea, not in the south. Some proponents of the southern Dead Sea theory argue that while Lot initially went east, he later migrated to the far south, closer to where Sodom may have been located. However, this interpretation does not align with the straightforward reading of Genesis 13, verse 12. The passage describes Lot choosing to dwell near the cities of the Kikar, a term used to refer to the fertile plains of the Jordan, likely closer to the northern end of the Dead Sea. Genesis also confirms that the cities were located in this same Kikar area, further discrediting the idea that Lot could have traveled so far south. The mention of the Jordan River Valley as a plain in these verses is significant. The Hebrew word for plain, kikar, implies a round or disc-shaped area, like a loaf of bread or a coin. This description closely matches the geography north of the Dead Sea. The region is shaped by a large circular plain, bordered by mountains that form a natural enclosure, making it a fertile basin for agriculture and settlement. The plain north of the Dead Sea, with its characteristic round shape and proximity to water sources, fits the biblical description of where Lot settled. Bisected by the Jordan River, this area would have been a flourishing hub of life, offering an ideal setting for the thriving cities of Sodom and Gomorrah before their destruction. Today, this area is arid and desolate, but in ancient times, it was described as a paradise of fertility. The Tel El Hamam Excavations. The discovery of Tel El Hamam in Jordan has reignited the debate over the location of Sodom and Gomorrah. Stephen Collins, an archaeologist, began searching for Sodom in this region, relying on earlier surveys and ancient texts. His attention was drawn to Tel El Hamam, the largest Middle Bronze Age site in the Jordan Valley. To offer some perspective, Collins noted that 10 of the ancient city of David could fit within Sodom's walls with room to spare. Excavations at Tel El Hamam started in 2005, revealing a massive site that was abruptly destroyed and abandoned. Initially, archaeologists believed the destruction occurred around 1600 BC, which was too late to match the biblical account. However, after 8 seasons of excavation and analyzing over 40,000 artifacts, a new picture began to emerge. By 2013, evidence suggested the destruction of Tel El Hamam happened during the Middle Bronze Age too, a period that aligns with the time of Abraham. This discovery pushed the date back closer to the biblical timeline, offering a potential match for the catastrophic event described in Genesis. What really captured the attention of scholars was how the city was destroyed. The site and its surrounding settlements appeared to have been decimated by fire and extreme heat. Despite centuries of erosion, archaeologists uncovered layers of ash, melted pottery, and mud brick structures blown off their foundations. Pottery had melted into glass, and zircon crystals had formed from extreme temperatures. Foundation stones were scorched, and in some areas, mud brick superstructures were completely obliterated. Collins described the scene as one of utter devastation, with pieces of pottery bubbling like lava. Bricks had turned ceramic-like from the intense heat, and some parts of the city even contained desert glass, a type of glass formed by high-heat events, scattered across the site. Interestingly, this fiery destruction mirrors the account in Genesis, where fire rained down from the heavens to annihilate Sodom and Gomorrah. Nearby, a large cemetery lies to the southwest of the city ruins, marked by numerous pits. These graves were heavily looted by locals over the years, contributing to the destruction of the cemetery's boundaries. Archaeological estimates suggest that around 500,000 people are buried in this cemetery. What makes the findings particularly intriguing is the simultaneous destruction of both the city and the cemetery. The evidence suggests that both were ravaged by the same fire disaster, rather than by military action. The absence of signs of warfare combined with the extreme heat that warped the bones in the graves, supports the theory that a natural disaster was the cause. The physical evidence from Tel El Hamam, with its signs of an intense concussive event, supports the possibility that the biblical story is based on a real historical event, one that the Israelites passed down as part of their heritage from the time of Abraham. The Meteor Theory. According to Professor Kenneth, a distinguished earth scientist at the University of California, the destruction of Tel El Hamam was likely caused by a meteorite explosion. The event is believed to have unleashed temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees Celsius, comparable to the Tunguska meteorite explosion in Siberia in 1908. This revelation has solidified the suggestion that Tel El Hamam is the ancient biblical city of Sodom, destroyed by divine wrath, as described in the book of Genesis. The evidence presented by Professor Kenneth and his team is based on a detailed analysis of the area, revealing a layer of destruction that is consistent with a sudden, catastrophic event. This layer contains traces of iron and silicon-rich spheres, molten metals, and deformed quartz, all of which suggest an explosion caused by a meteorite. These findings align with the high-pressure impact that would result from such an event, further supporting the meteor theory. One of the most fascinating aspects of this discovery is the remarkable cold-rich layer of destruction, marking the abrupt end of civilization in Tel El Hamam and the surrounding region. In an area of roughly 30 kilometers, 15 other cities and over 100 villages were abandoned at the same time. For 300 to 600 years after the explosion, these cities remained uninhabited, with no signs of life returning until centuries later. The salt-laden soil of the region, possibly contaminated by debris scattered from the nearby Dead Sea, rendered the area unsuitable for agriculture, contributing to the mass exodus of people. The explosive force that devastated Tel El Hamam was so powerful that it caused extreme dismemberment of the bodies of those living in the city at the time. Analysis of bones found in the area shows signs of extreme trauma, likely caused by the intense shockwave and heat that followed the meteorite's impact. These remains offer a stark reminder of the scale of destruction, with many human bodies being torn apart by the blast. Additionally, the high salt concentration found in the destruction layer provides further evidence of a meteorite explosion. In some areas, the salt concentration reaches up to 25%, far higher than natural levels. Scientists propose that the explosion lifted salt from the Dead Sea and dispersed it across the region, rendering the land uninhabitable for hundreds of years. This drastic change in the environment led to a sharp decline in the population, reducing tens of thousands of inhabitants to just a few hundred nomadic tribes over time. The abandonment of Tel El Hamam and the surrounding cities was not a gradual process. Archaeological evidence indicates that the region was thriving before the disaster, with a bustling population and well-developed infrastructure. However, after the sudden and violent event, the cities were left desolate, and no significant human activity returned to the area for at least 600 years. The once fertile lands of the Jordan Valley were reduced to barren, salt-covered soil, unable to sustain the crops that had once supported large communities. A timeless lesson in divine justice. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah has endured through the ages as a powerful symbol of divine justice and mercy. Rooted in ancient texts, this narrative is not merely an account of destruction, but a profound illustration of the complex relationship between God's holiness and His compassion. Sodom and Gomorrah, cities described in the Bible as epitomes of sin and moral decay, met their end through a dramatic display of divine wrath. According to the scriptures, the cities were destroyed by burning sulfur as a consequence of their extreme depravity and rebellion against God. The significance of Sodom and Gomorrah extends beyond their immediate destruction. These cities serve as a stark warning to humanity about the nature of divine justice. The Apostle Peter highlights their fate as a forewarning of the ultimate judgment to come. In 2 Peter 2 verse 6, he writes that the city's destruction made them an example of what is going to happen to the ungodly. This reinforces the idea that the divine wrath seen in Sodom and Gomorrah is a precursor to the final judgment described in Christian eschatology. Similarly, in 2 Peter 3 verse 7, Peter notes that the present heavens and earth are reserved for fire, being kept for the day of judgment and destruction of the ungodly. Yet, the story is also a testament to God's mercy. Lot, his wife, and his daughters were spared from the fiery demise of the cities. Their salvation amid widespread destruction illustrates God's compassion and His willingness to deliver those who seek righteousness, even in environments saturated with sin. This merciful act underscores the dual aspects of divine nature, love and justice. Despite the catastrophic judgment, the preservation of Lot's family symbolizes hope and redemption. The lessons from Sodom and Gomorrah extend into various aspects of cultural and religious teachings. In Deuteronomy 29 verse 23, the destruction is invoked as a warning about the consequences of turning away from divine laws. It describes the land becoming a burning waste of salt and sulfur, a vivid image of desolation intended to remind future generations of the seriousness of defying God. Prophets such as Isaiah also referenced the cities to critique contemporary moral failings. Isaiah 3 verse 9 uses the example of Sodom to condemn the public display of sin and moral corruption, illustrating how the city's fate serves as a timeless moral lesson. The New Testament epistle of Jude draws on the story to emphasize the consequences of sexual immorality and perversion, stating that Sodom and Gomorrah serve as an example of those who suffer the punishment of eternal fire. This reflection reinforces the narrative's role as a moral and spiritual warning about the ultimate fate of those who indulge in wickedness. In the teachings of Jesus, Sodom and Gomorrah serve as a stark warning for our times. When Jesus referenced these ancient cities, he was not merely recounting a historical event, but offering a profound lesson about moral decay and divine judgment that resonates with our modern era. The decadence and destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah are not just relics of the past, but serve as living mirrors of our present world. Jesus' warning in Luke chapter 17 draws a parallel between the days of Lot and our contemporary society. Just as the people of Sodom were absorbed in daily routines, eating, drinking, buying, and selling, without regard for their moral state, we too seem to be caught in a cycle of indulgence and neglect. The blatant disregard for God's teachings and the glorification of sin reflect a moral decline reminiscent of Sodom's downfall. The urgency of Jesus' message is clear. We stand at a crucial crossroads. The lessons from Sodom and Gomorrah compel us to reflect on whether we will heed the warnings of history or repeat the mistakes of the past. The city's destruction came suddenly and without warning, demonstrating that the day of reckoning can arrive unexpectedly. Jesus used the destruction of Sodom as a vivid illustration of what will happen when he is revealed. The people of Sodom were consumed by their sins until the very moment of their destruction, a sobering reminder that moral decay leads to inevitable consequences. He emphasized the need for readiness and repentance, as those who cling to sin will face judgment, while those who seek redemption will be spared. The intersection of faith and science. The relationship between faith and science often seems fraught with tension, yet it also provides opportunities for profound enrichment and dialogue. One of the most intriguing examples of this interplay can be found in the ongoing exploration of historical and archaeological discoveries, such as the potential identification of Sodom and Gomorrah. These investigations offer a unique opportunity to bridge the gap between religious belief and scientific inquiry. The biblical story of Sodom and Gomorrah, as recounted in Genesis, is one of divine judgment and destruction. According to the account, these cities were obliterated by fire and brimstone due to their extreme wickedness, leaving behind no substantial physical trace. This narrative has long been a cornerstone of religious tradition, symbolizing the consequences of moral failure and divine wrath. Recent archaeological endeavors, however, have brought a new dimension to this ancient tale. Researchers exploring Tel El Hamam in Jordan have revealed layers of ash and destruction that they believe are linked to the destruction described in the Bible. These findings include evidence of intense fires and possible meteorite impacts, which could explain the catastrophic events described in the Genesis account. For many, this discovery is more than just an archaeological find. It represents a potential intersection between ancient religious texts and empirical evidence. If the findings at Tel El Hamam are confirmed as being linked to the biblical cities, they could offer a tangible connection between the historical narrative of Sodom and Gomorrah and the physical evidence found through scientific exploration. This connection could provide a new perspective on how ancient texts might reflect real historical events, even if interpreted through religious lenses. The exploration of Sodom and Gomorrah underscores the possibility of reconciling faith with scientific discovery. It opens the door to a dialogue where religious beliefs and scientific findings are not necessarily in opposition, but can complement and enrich one another. Such discussions encourage a deeper examination of how ancient narratives might align with or illuminate historical realities uncovered through archaeology. This dialogue fosters a broader understanding of both faith and science. For religious communities, the discovery of evidence that might corroborate biblical events can reinforce their faith, demonstrating that their sacred texts may hold historical truths. For scientists, such findings offer an opportunity to engage with historical and religious contexts, enhancing their understanding of the civilizations they study. Additionally, the recent discoveries related to Sodom and Gomorrah have sparked renewed interest in the search for other biblical stories. One of the most debated stories is the search for Noah's Ark. Critics have long argued against its historical reality, but discoveries like those related to Sodom and Gomorrah lend credence to the idea that such artifacts could be found. If ancient narratives have proven accurate, the search for the Ark of Noah gains renewed vigor, as it suggests that biblical accounts might indeed have physical evidence waiting to be uncovered. Similarly, the miraculous events described in Exodus, such as the parting of the Red Sea and the subsequent destruction of the Egyptian army in the sea, have faced skepticism. Archaeological findings supporting the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah may enhance the credibility of these events, suggesting that other dramatic stories in the Bible could also be based on actual historical incidents. Sodom and Gomorrah in modern culture, echoes of ancient legends. The ancient cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, renowned for their biblical association with wickedness and divine retribution, have left an enduring mark on contemporary culture. From architecture to popular media, these cities' legendary tales continue to inspire and shape artistic and cultural expressions, reflecting their profound influence on the human imagination. The legacy of Sodom and Gomorrah can be seen in the use of the cities' names to evoke themes of destruction and moral decay. The term Gomorrah was notably used for Operation Gomorrah, the Allied bombing campaign during World War II that targeted Hamburg, Germany. The operation, which resulted in one of the largest firestorms of the war, killed approximately 40,000 people and caused widespread devastation. Popular media also reflects the enduring legacy of Sodom and Gomorrah. The city's stories have inspired a wide range of creative works across different genres. In literature, Jean Giraudoux' 1943 play Sodom et Gomorrah explores themes of moral and societal collapse through the lens of the ancient city's narrative. Greek writer Nikos Kazantzakis also engaged with the Sodom and Gomorrah legend in his 1950s work Sodom Gomorrah, reflecting on the city's symbolic significance in the modern era. The influence of Sodom and Gomorrah extends into visual arts as well. Throughout history, artists have depicted the city's dramatic destruction in various forms, from medieval psalters to Renaissance frescoes. The portrayal of Sodom and Gomorrah's fall often serves as a vivid representation of divine judgment and human moral failings. The dramatic imagery of fire and brimstone has continued to captivate audiences and artists alike, reflecting the city's deep-rooted association with sin and punishment. The term sodomy, derived from the name of these cities, further illustrates their impact on language and cultural discourse. Originally used to describe specific sexual acts, the term has evolved to encompass broader discussions about morality and legality. This usage underscores the historical connection between the city's infamous reputation and contemporary debates on sexual ethics and law. In literature, the Marquis de Sade's infamous 1785 work, 120 Days of Sodom, draws a provocative parallel between the city's legendary immorality and the book's explicit content. Sade's use of the term reflects the city's enduring symbolic power as representations of extreme vice and corruption. The legacy of Sodom and Gomorrah is not confined to historical or literary contexts. It resonates deeply with modern psychological and social explorations. The city's stories are frequently referenced in discussions about human behavior, ethics, and the consequences of moral failure. Their narrative serves as a cautionary tale, reflecting ongoing concerns about societal values and individual conduct. Could the groundbreaking discovery at Tel El Hamam change our understanding of ancient history and biblical events? Or is there still more to uncover about the lost cities of Sodom and Gomorrah?